This next project is called Pointillism. We've already covered in the elements of art line and different ways of using line to create value, including stippling, which is just a series of dots. So if you're trying to create a range of values, lights and darks, you just put more dots down to make an area darker, and then you space your dots, put less dots down to lighten up your value. And that shift from dark to light in drawings and paintings is a way to make your drawings and paintings appear to be three-dimensional. So this is an example of a pointillism drawing that I did. And here's some examples of some student pointillism pieces that were just finished this semester by Quincy High School students. Here's another example, and here's a skull example. This student did a really nice job going from dark to light along the edges of the horns here and right in here on the skull. Great detail. These are all photographs students were working with from the internet. Here's a tiger drawing that was just finished. And lastly, a giraffe. So again, these students all worked with photographs, black and white photographs from the internet. You're going to need to work with a black and white photograph for this assignment, preferably of an animal. It has to be a photograph, a black and white photograph, so that it shows grayscale. Okay, so to do this project, you're going to need your photograph. I'm going to go ahead and just work with this bald eagle for this demonstration. You're also going to need a pencil, and you're going to need an eraser, and you're going to need an ultra fine point Sharpie. So the ultra fine points, make sure that they're the real small tipped ones. Here, I'll zoom in so you can see the tip on this. It's quite small. Okay. You're also going to need for this assignment a ruler, and you're going to need a piece of drawing paper. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to create a grid. Now, you don't have to use the grid if you don't want to, if you'd rather just, draw your image. But I like to teach grid drawings with this assignment for students to use for the rest of the year if they like. I personally like to use grids when I'm doing drawings and paintings of portraits, of people and of animals too, but mostly of people. I really like to make sure that I get all the features correct. So another trick that I have in my classroom, I have made the gridding process quicker by taking overhead transparencies and making grids on the overhead transparencies and making copies of these. So that way, instead of making the grid on your actual photograph, you can just place the transparency over your photograph, and it saves a lot of time. If your teacher or if a TA or somebody has time to do this for you with some old overhead transparencies, that'd be great. I have several of these on file for my students to use. I have 1 inch, and then I also have a 1/2 inch transparency. The more smaller your image or the more detail your image, you want to use the 1/2 inch grid. If it's a bigger image or larger features or whatever, you can use the 1 inch. So it's just kind of up to you. For this bald eagle, I'm going to go ahead and use the 1 inch grid. Okay. If you don't have a grid, let me show you how to do this if you don't have a grid, a transparency. So to make your grid on your photograph, you just want to line your ruler up at the edge of the photograph, and you want to do little tick marks. I like to call these little tick marks at every 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this out to the 7-inch mark. I could crop it right here if I wanted to, but I'm just going to go ahead and bring it out. It's up to you if you want to crop your image or bring it out. And then I'm going to slide the ruler down and do the same thing down here. Make sure that you grid all 4 sides of your photograph. Often I have students make the mistake of just gridding or just doing the tick marks across the top, and then they try to make a straight line, but their grid normally doesn't turn out perfectly squared. And if you don't have a squared grid on your photograph, it might mess up your final drawing when you go to transfer the image. So it's always best to get it down. So then go ahead and make your lines. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and number my image. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and number it down here. I'm going to number the number in between the lines, not on the lines. Okay, let's go ahead and turn this way. We're going to do tick marks on this side as well. And I'm going to go ahead and, this is about 5 inches, so I'm just going to start right here. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'm going to slide my ruler down this way. And again, do my tick marks down here. Okay, and then just go ahead and make your lines going horizontally across the photograph. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and number this way as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have a 5 by 7 inch, 5 by 7 1-inch grid on here. Now for this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and let me see how big is this paper. I'm only using a scratch piece of paper for this demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and just do a 1-inch grid on here. So I'm not enlarging this, I'm just transferring this same size onto my drawing paper. But if you wanted to enlarge this and make it bigger, you could double it. So you would do a 2-inch grid on your drawing paper. So you would do your tick marks at every 2 inches on all 4 sides of your large piece of drawing paper, so that it is 7 inches across by 10 inches down. Okay, if you wanted to triple it, you could do a 3-inch grid and make it really big. You would just do 21 inches by 15 inches and so on. Okay. When I do this assignment with my students, I generally like to have them draw their images a little bit bigger. So I'll have them do a 1-inch to a 2-inch grid, or a 1-inch to a 1.5-inch grid. It all just kind of depends on the student, the photograph, and with pointillism though, it's actually a good idea to keep your drawings relatively small. I wouldn't do anything bigger than a 2-inch grid on this because you're going to be doing lots of dots. Okay, lots of stippling, and that can get, for some students, that can get kind of tiring. So keeping your image kind of small is actually better. Okay, so go ahead and we're going to go ahead and grid this piece of paper now. I'm going to go ahead and do a 1-inch grid on here, lining my ruler up at the edge of the paper. Okay, now on your final drawing, when you're doing a grid on your final drawing paper, it's really important that you do it very lightly, because you're going to end up erasing your grid. Most all of my students did grids on their Pointillism projects, but you don't see the grid in the background because we really emphasized doing it very lightly, because you don't want to turn in a final drawing that has grid lines all over it. Alright, so I have made my grid on my drawing paper here, just doing a 1-inch grid, just like my photograph. I did it very lightly, and I also numbered it going across and up, just corresponding just how my photograph is. So for gridding, it's very simple. I'm just going to go ahead and draw what I see here in square. Let's see, the tip of the head right here, I just see a little tiny bit of this eagle's head in square 2, 5, right here on the corner. Okay, so I'll zoom in on this a little bit for you. Okay, so we see right here 2, 5. So I'm just going to draw this shape right here in 2, 5. Okay, just like that. Okay, and I'm doing it lightly. Okay, and let's see, let's move down to square 2, 4. Okay, so I see the top of the beak and its nostril here in square 2, 4. So I'm going to go to 2, 4 on my drawing paper, and again I'm just going to draw what I see in the corresponding square. Okay, so the beak here crosses over right here on the intersection of 1, 2, 4, 3. So I'm going to go to 1, 2, 4, 3 and draw the tip of the beak like that. Okay, bringing that down. Okay, so now I just see just a little bit of the very tip of the beak here in square 1, 3. Okay, so 1, 3. Same thing, bringing that down. And it hooks down here. I see the tip, and this is in 2, 3, so back to 2, 3. I see the tip, and it looks something like this. Curves up and around. It's got a slight curve right here. Okay. And its mouth, this line right here, I notice goes all the way to the intersection of 4, 3, 4, 3. Okay, so right here. Okay, so I'm just going to draw that curve, and that's the length of the mouth. And the bottom of the beak, I see in 2, 3. Let's bring that up. Curves around. Alright, so I have the bald eagle all sketched out here really lightly. I finished the drawing. So now I'm going to start with my Sharpie, and we're going to do some stippling. So I'm going to just practice stippling down here below my drawing before I get started. So just a reminder, it's always a good idea to practice stippling before you get started. So I'll zoom way in on this for you so that you can see. So the more dots, the darker the value. And as you lighten up, you space your dots out. To get that gradation or that shift in value. Okay, and then lighter, 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 and then if you have something that's white, you just want to leave it, unstippled. So kind of just a rule of thumb, just to kind of keep in mind as you're working, you can always go back in and make things darker. You can always go back in and add more Sharpie, but you can't erase this as permanent. So when in doubt, keep it light, and you can go back in later and add more if you feel like it needs more. So on my photograph here around the eagle's eye, you really see gradation. You see it go from dark to light right in here. So let me show you how to do that up here on the eagle's eye. Okay, so this pupil and around the outer edge of the iris is pretty dark. It's black. So I'm just going to go ahead and stipple this in. Careful not to outline anything. Notice I'm not doing any straight lines or continuous lines. This whole drawing is going to be composed entirely of dots. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to the outer edge of the iris. And fill that in with dots. And I'm going to kind of bring it out a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and dot right underneath this brow line here. And then I'm going to put more dots right underneath that line. And then as I move down towards the mouth and towards the beak, I'm going to kind of space those dots out. Okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and just do just a few here above the eye, and then I'm going to go behind the eye here, and I'm looking at how it kind of fades out, goes from dark to light back here a little bit. Okay, if I see any kind of like patterns, kind of linear patterns in the feathers, I might kind of do that. Creating a sense of fur and a sense of like feathers using this method of stippling on animals can be kind of challenging. Okay, and the white, or I mean the iris of this eagle's eye isn't completely white like the top of its head is. So I'm going to go ahead and put just a few dots here in the eye as well. Okay, I think I'm just going to leave it like that. forgot to draw in the nostril here, so I'm going to draw in this kind of curved linear shape here, and then I see that. And then I see the nostril right about here. So I'm going to go ahead and make that nostril just a little bit darker towards the inside, and then slightly fade it out. Now, since the beak is pretty relatively light in value, I think what I'm going to do for this drawing is I'm going to go in and stipple behind the bird around the edge of the bird. I'm going to do it kind of dark, and then as I go towards the edge of the paper, I will kind of fade these dots out. Now you'll notice that I didn't worry about erasing my grid lines yet. I'm going to just completely erase all my pencil at the very end of this when I'm completely done stippling. Okay, so this gets you started. I'll keep working on this, and I will show you the finished drawing when it's done. This assignment normally takes students about 2 weeks, a week and a half to 2 weeks to complete from start to finish. So good luck, and I'm looking forward to seeing your finished drawings.